Hey geeks, welcome to another exciting episode of Rockin the Code World with dotNetDave. I'm David McCarter. I'm glad you're here. It's been 3 weeks. It's been a crazy 3 weeks, not only in the world, but some stuff personally too. And, I was just thinking, I kind of wish the world would just slow down just a bit, right now. But, maybe because I'm getting older and you all are young. And yeah, never mind. Anyway, welcome to show number 73. We're almost to 75. I'm so excited. Simon's excited too. And today our guest is going to be Clark Sell from that conference. So we're going to be talking a lot about community, which is one of my favorite subjects because, I ran a user group for 20 years here in San Diego, California. And, I've done so much work in community and it's a big thing to me. And actually, quite frankly, I don't think I'd be where I am if it wasn't for the community that I was a part of here. So thank you all for getting me here so I can do the show for you all. So we'll be talking to Clark in a little bit. So let's get going because I don't want to waste too much time. I want to promote my new book. Woo-hoo. I just ordered a couple of days ago real copies, not a proof copy like this one. So I'm excited to get the real copies in. My code performance book for Microsoft.net. I worked most of last year on this book, and it's got tons and tons of graphs and information and, showing you the best ways to approach things to get the most performance, out of your code, especially these days in the cloud. So I hope you go pick up a copy. It's available wherever Amazon ships prints books. So go to my website and all the links are right there. So I hope you check it out. I also, at the beginning of the month, released the new version of Spargin, my open source project I've been working real hard on. And the cool thing about this version, at least to me, is that, last year, all the work I did for my code performance book, I actually learned a lot from that book. Even if I don't make a lot of money off of it, it was a really great teaching experience for myself. And so I've been in this version of Spargin. I've been Spargine. I always mispronounce it. I have been rolling in a lot of those things I've learned from writing my book into my open source, and I'm going to keep working on that. So I hope you go check it out. And to make it easier for you to check it out, my latest article in CSharpCorner is about the latest version of my open source project, and it lists all and documents every new method in my open source. I'm really big into documentation, and so this is kind of my way of doing it, is by writing an article about everything I add to it. And then when I don't have a lot for news things, I actually go back and write about older things that I haven't written about. So anyway, I hope you go check out the article and check out Spartan. I've had some issues getting all the source code up, but I finally got it up this morning. GitHub just hates me these last few weeks. All right, I'm going to do a new section, and I'm going to try to do this fast, Simon. And but I'll release this as a clip on Twitter or wherever. But I wanted to do a new section called Public Service Announcement. This is where I'm going to get on my soapbox, which I usually do anyway. But I kind of wanted to make a thing about it. So this is going to be the first one, and it's going to be and all these things I'm going to be talking about on Public Service Announcement, if you like it, is things that I keep going through over and over again. And I'm just want to warn you, if you don't follow a lot of things that I write about, it's going to end up costing your project not only money, but features too. So here goes the first one. Dispose and memory issues. I'm really big into this. I write a lot about iDisposable and memory issues in Microsoft.net. But this section isn't really for you developers. When I release this on Twitter, I want you to send this to all of your project managers and managers. They're the ones that need to listen to this part, right? Because I've already talked till I'm blue in the face on how to implement iDisposable correctly and how to find disposable issues and things like that. But this is going to be for your manager, okay? Devs must ensure not to write code that introduces memory issues. Okay, yeah, that's a I would think that's a normal goal, right? But unfortunately, I don't see this. And I'm not exaggerating. I rarely see this done correctly at all. But what happens is this will cause issues in the life of your project. I guarantee you, this will cause issues. Every company that I end up working for, they have issues, and this is the issue. Okay. It's what I'm talking about here. And it will be costly to fix depending how long and how bad it is, of course. I've worked on projects 6 months and didn't even fix all of their memory issues. So this can be very, very costly to your company managers and project managers. And that's a big deal, right? It will cause delays in the project. I guarantee it. Every single project I'm on where this happens, it causes delays in the project. It will cause merge issues in source code repositories. And this is what I've been dealing with in the last couple of weeks, is because these are usually over, we touch so much of the code, and you have other developers working on the code, and trying to merge that and then get it tested and everything is a freaking nightmare, right? So, and this is part of the thing that will cause delays in the project. And lastly, it will cause frustration with the team. My team is frustrated with this because they can't merge things, they can't get things up, they can't get things tested, and so on and so on. So everybody's frustrated, but I am very frustrated about this. And so please get your team to learn about how to prevent this in the first place, okay? Very, very important. And the way to start, go to my website. I have many, many articles. Buy my books. Every single book I write, I talk about this, okay? But your team needs to code this correctly in the first place, or you're going to run into all of those 5 things. Every single project I work on, this happens, okay? So there's the public service announcement. I don't know how that long that was, Simon. I'm sorry. But you never know when I'm unscripted. So I want to introduce Clark. He's a historically trained developer, architect, and product manager. He's managed to fool many companies like Allstate, Microsoft, and Telerik to let him and his crazy, passionate entrepreneurial see only limited opportunities of that person to work for them. And he's the guy who started and now runs that conference. And I can keep going on his bio, but my mouth is dry and I want to take a drink of coffee. So, oh, sorry, I went ahead. So welcome, Clark.
Well, thank you for having me.
I screw up every bio, so I'm sorry.
I'm just a dude, just like everybody else.
Go to the website. You can read the bio, right?
That's right.
So how are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
You're telling me you're going skiing soon, so
I am. You caught me before we start packing bags to head to Colorado.
Yeah, it's going to be cold there.
I'm looking forward to it. Yep.
I kind of miss the snow. I don't get to see the snow very much here in Southern California, and I grew up in the snow, and I used to live. I grew up in Flagstaff, Arizona. Where it freaking snowed all the time.
Yep.
One year it snowed over 200 inches when I lived there. And,
wow.
Yeah. So
that's
I kind of miss it. Yeah, I kind of miss it during this time of year. I don't miss the cold. That's why I live here.
Yeah, I can't.
Miss the
I don't
snow.
like the gray. The gray is the thing that kills me here.
Yeah.
If it's going to be cold, snow, but the gray's got to go.
Hey, Simon, have you ever seen snow or been in snow? No. Yeah. See, some people don't even know what we're talking about. that kind of reminds me. I was back east. I think it was like 2018, and I decided to take a trip and go to Mount Washington, in New Hampshire. And because I used to go up there as a little tiny kid with my parents, and I decided to have lunch on the way down at I think we have 5 grand hotels in America still. One is here in San Diego, actually, and the Hotel Del. And then there's one here right at the base of Mount Washington. And I decided to have lunch there. And you know, it was what time of year was it? It was like October, you know, something like that. I'm
Okay.
sitting there having lunch, and a little flurries. I mean, they were just barely flurries coming down, right? And all of a sudden, the staff from the hotel goes running out, and you know, going like this, like, and I asked my waitress, I go, why are they so happy? It's barely doing anything. Oh, they're from the Philippines. They've never seen snow. Right? I go, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be interesting.
Yeah,
That'd be
it was
interesting to
really
see
interesting to
something.
see, because I
Yeah.
just take it for granted because I grew
Yeah.
up in it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, you do, and you know where you live in near Chicago, right? And
Yeah.
so yeah, so some people have never seen that, like Simon. Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
Simon, come visit us and we can take you to some snow. You know, it actually snows not very far from where I live, just like an hour away. So that's the cool thing about Southern California. You can surf, you can ski, and what's the third thing? Now I'm forgetting. You can do like 3 crazy things all in the span of one day.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
because everything is so close here. We have mountains very close, you know,
Sure.
to the ocean, that it snows or they make snow or whatever. So
We can pay taxes, drive on highways, or sit in traffic and pay more taxes. That's what we can do.
I'm so glad I don't have to drive on the freeway every day to go to work anymore. You know, I'm that part of my, you know, our job. I am so happy we have that opportunity. I know not a lot of people do in this country, but I am so glad, because now I can stay off the road. It lowers my stress. I save money, save the planet, all those kind of cool things. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So, but let's stop talking about you and me. Let's talk about community. So what do you want to talk about community? So when did you get started in community? This isn't on the list of my questions.
Yeah. You know, I think it's, when did I get started? I got started when my career got started, really.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, you said earlier, you know, you don't think you'd be where you are if it wasn't for it. And I would very much say the same. I've been in this industry now, I don't know, 25 years, and I was always involved in some aspect somewhere.
Yeah.
And it was probably 15 years ago where I really started getting involved in running user groups and code camps and things like that. And then started running conferences, and now run one very large one. So
yeah, you sure do.
Yeah.
I got started the same year I became a professional software developer. You know, the first year I was able to get a permanent job doing it. Right. I started the same year. My first talk ever was the user group I started. It was in July of, you know, that year. I don't want to say anymore because it makes me feel old. But
yeah,
but yeah, it was the same year, and that's, you know, that's how it got this whole ball rolling, and that's how it got me to where I am. And I, you know, when it became 25 years, I actually did a conference user group talk about my journey and how much, community has not only helped my career, but helped my personal life. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and then I, you know, there's an article on my website if anybody wants to read that. I think you can go look for the video too. But, you know, I had to give credit to the community and to, you know, my very close developer friends, and because I have to give them credit. They got me to where I am.
Yeah, I think we're at a very interesting intersection in life, you know, kind of coming out of this pandemic, and you know, people's online lives grew quite a bit, and their connections grew, which is great. But you know, I've been on this warpath to remind people that in real life, you know, that human connection is still equally as important.
Oh, more.
And I mean, especially right
now.
More.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't forget about it. And unfortunately, I'm seeing user groups and code camps and all that stuff just dry up and die up because they haven't survived.
Yeah.
And we
don't have any here anymore.
Yeah. That's a concern.
It is. And, you know, I tell people, I know Mahesh, you know, says this a lot, you know, when him and I talk together online and even, you know, in person, that, you know, that, in-person conferences are so much more valuable than online, right? And it's not because of the presentations, it's because of the interaction, right?
Yeah.
And I know I'm a bit different because I'm a speaker and I've been doing this forever, and I usually don't even go to sessions, right? Because most of the sessions you can get online now, right?
Yep. Yep.
I spend most of the time, either speaking, getting ready for speaking, or speaking to people. And that networking, I tell people all the time, I learn more from that than the sessions.
Yeah. And I think, you're spot on. I kind of historically call that the hallway track.
Yeah.
And I think of sessions as this thing that helps start a conversation,
Mhm.
right? You're right. Chances are what's there, you could find somewhere else online.
Mhm.
And I tell people who want to speak, like, you need to put your own twist on things. Why are you important? What's your unique perspective on the thing that you're bringing to the table? Because if it's something that you can Google, then you're just wasting people's time.
Right.
And
right.
We all have a very different lens on the things that we work in and the context of why it matters. And now, given the kind of proliferation of content online, I think, I really challenge people to think a little bit harder about what you're doing in person and getting a little deeper and a little bit more vulnerable on, the real shit, because why else? Why be there? Right. You've got a big expense, time, travel, whatever it is. Like, let's make the most out of it. And, cause what used to work before isn't really the case anymore. Right. We got to adapt with the times. It's not bad. It's just it's our evolution of kind of community.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me once, someone, told me a while ago that he comes up to me. I don't remember where it was. Maybe it was my user group or something, but he says, Dave, how do you know so much? It seems like you know everything, and I go, well, number one, I don't, but, but if you think that, it's because I come to this user group,
Right. Yeah.
It's not that I am presenting every month, but I am
Engaged.
Participating. I'm talking to people and I'm listening to those sessions, even if it's a subject I'm not super excited about. I still sit there and listen to it. Right.
Yep.
And that's how all that gets into my brain, and I'm able to, put those pieces together, maybe a little bit better than others. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I look to put myself around a tribe of people who I know will support one another, in the good and bad times. And when you're involved in a lot of things, you don't have to have the answer. You just have to know how to ask the right questions and find somebody who can guide you through whatever it is that you're in.
Yeah.
There's too much shit to learn. Like, it's impossible to think you would be, an expert in 1,000 of these things. And building that network is pretty key.
So kind of, we'll talk, I definitely want to talk more about your conference and how you run it and everything. But, since we're kind of been talking about user groups and conferences and everything, one of the questions I thought about asking you, I thought I wrote it down. I ran and started the user group here for 20 years until I retired. And then we kind of merged with another group here, and now that group is gone. But, I think, speakers is always sometimes hard to find, sometimes, and sometimes I have to fill in the gaps and everything. But I would say the number one challenge I had, running that group for that length of time was having a consistent group of people that would be there for, to help me run it. Right. And that to me was, some people come in for a month or two, or maybe 6 months and leave and just start disappearing and everything. And I couldn't really count on them. And so I ended up, unfortunately, doing 90% of the work sometimes. And all my friends that live here that help me, I'm not talking about you.
No, but
they're still all my really good friends, right?
Yeah, that's very indicative of all the user groups. And it's exactly why they all died up or are drying up. I'm not sure what the right adjective to use there is, or verb. That's why it's all happening as a result of the pandemic. And I have a few theories But it's sad because.
So how do we, I think part of the issue, and I'm sorry if anybody takes offense, but I think I just don't see that kind of same kind of want to get out in community and help with a younger crowd than us older folks that did it when we started, right? And I'm not talking about everybody, but it just kind of feels that other people have said the same thing to me, and it kind of feels that way. So one thing I've been thinking of, and especially since you run a conference, you're a great person to ask, is how do we get the younger crowd interested in this, right? I mean, we can complain and whine and everything, but how do we get them interested? How do we attract them to something? Because we just kind of naturally got attracted to it, I think. But I think we have to kind of encourage the younger crowd. So do you have any ideas on that?
Well, so I'm going to back up and go to a couple of my theories and then jump into the question, because I think it will help normalize some of the thinking. User groups are great. But unfortunately, and this is very much true for that conference too. I mean, unfortunately, they start and then sometimes run on the backs of the organizers. And so they're not really set up to succeed financially. They're not set up to succeed time-wise. They're not always necessarily, I don't want to say convenient, because there's a lot of work that comes into them. So I would often see people, trying to do this for the greater good, right, with all the right intentions, but then having no support to get it done. Some company would buy a set of pizza and then people would show up and eat the pizza and whatever. But I think if people would have flipped it, right, and thought of a little bit more as a business, right? I'm not saying, full out like profit and P&Ls and all that kind of shit, but actually have a sponsorship package, actually get yourself on, some kind of payroll so that it is worth your time, right? Because I think the biggest problem is when your time starts to become of value somewhere else, then these things kind of go to the side.
Right.
And
like a 501, like the other group here that we merged with was a 501c, and so they were completely different. And they were more, I know that's different, maybe a little bit than you're talking about, but they were a lot more organized than we were. My thing was not to be too organized, not to work on it too much, because we're not making anything and we're not, we got to do it the best we can.
But on the flip side of that is there's two problems, right? If you don't have any opportunity to go and do marketing, right, then your people or your available people become less, right? And we don't like sales and marketing historically. We want to just do the thing. But the reality is people don't know if you don't market. And a lot of times people are behind the firewall, if you will, and in their companies, and it's through word of mouth. And you may never see them, right? They may have all the intentions of going and speaking and sharing and just have no clue that it even exists.
I experienced that when I talked to people here when I was running the group, and I was going, "You don't know about our group? Are you kidding me? You know how much time I spend on that?"
Right.
But
and so those things get fixed when you have some resources, aka money, to be able to scale yourself so that you can bring it. Because the thing that concerns me, and this concerns me for that conference too, is if it's to ever go away, the crater that's left is larger than when it started, right? It's almost damaging in the fact that people, like for us, companies depend on the revenue source and leads and this kind of whatever. So if it doesn't work, I'm kind of painting broad strokes, but if it doesn't work for me and I leave and it goes away, then I've impacted people's kind of livelihood, and that's not good either.
Right.
So fast forward to now, right? We've had this proliferation of content. There's a whole set of kids, professionals, whatever you want to say, who have never even, right? If you came out of college in, I was going to say 1999, 2019, right? And then you went into a pandemic, like your professional life is very skewed to what the reality is. And you may have never even had an opportunity to work in an office with other individuals to understand like what an actual stand-up feels like
Right.
in the mornings, because you're just doing the Zoom shit. And so, I think today you kind of that level of marketing and trying to get where people are, and conversations like this, more of them need to happen to where we're really talking about the authentic things that are a result, because in person's important. But if we don't talk about it and document it and explain and show up and do, then they go away, right?
Yeah.
And then in 10 years, somebody be like, I had this great idea. Let's all get together and like have a hackathon. You're like, no shit. We've been trying to do that for a decade.
I know. We're
Right?
doing that forever. What are you talking
Right.
about?
So, marketing and kind of going where they are, whoever they is. And I worry, I see things like Mastodon and whatever, all the Discord groups and Slack groups and all that. And I almost worry that we are getting siloed in our own echo chambers. And so it's even worse to try to find people, because we've fragmented so hard, like the pendulum has just gone so far the other way, that it's almost impossible to really try to meet everybody where they are, because there's a million places where everybody is. And that's a hard, we struggle with that, right? How do we get the word out? Where do we get it out? I want to authentically be in the online places that I am, but at the same token, I also can't be in 1,000 Discords, nor do I even know where the 1,000 are, right? How do you, there's no catalog of like, here's my Discord group for whatever group.
Yeah. That's exactly what I thought about, those kind of things. Mastodon. I looked at Mastodon, I checked it out. I go, this seems silly. Exactly what you're saying. You're getting more and more segmented off, and that's our problem, I think.
I don't like the echo chamber.
Right.
Love, hate Twitter. Social is kind of a whole problem in on itself, but the ability to see or get dragged into, if you will, different opinions and things that you may have not been aware of, that's really important, right? We run a polyglot conference because we want to create exposure to the stack that you're not in, because there's things that are valuable to learn there that you would never see if you never went to it. And so I don't know, I think the next 10 years are going to be interesting, and I really encourage people to really evaluate your online life and your in-person life, and realize that they're complementary of one another. They're not a replacement for either. And you need to invest in yourself. And developers, I don't know, we get in this a little bit too altruistic, in the sense that people don't want to spend money, and they don't want to buy a course, and they don't want to
they don't want to pay for anything. I know.
Right. Like, no, you can't succeed unless you succeed. Right. And that's unfortunate, because to be able to go buy like, Wes Boss's course for $100, like it's $100. The most developers are in the top 10% of earners in the world. Like, spend $100. One, Wes keeps producing great content and he succeeds. Great. We all succeed because we got a pile full of content for a fraction of the cost. Like, I pay for it just to get a few chapters out of it. Like, of course.
I've been complaining about developers my whole developer life, that developers are the cheapest people. They don't like to pay for anything. I used to joke about watching developers trying to split a bill at a restaurant. It's really funny. Instead of saying just split it in 5 ways, we're
going to write a software program to split it.
He had 3 drinks. I only had 1. And, it frustrated me so much that, when I was teaching at the university, one of the things I had them do for a lab was create a calculator, a bill splitter calculator. that included the tip and all that kind of stuff. So developers could use it.
Yeah. And look, for me, I just want people to invest in themselves and
Right.
not be scared to spend $100, because
Or
the
20
time
or
and the
20.
ecosystem, the ecosystem that surrounds it, will thrive when we all contribute to it, right? And
Right.
too many people, I see too many people waiting for somebody else to invest in them, and that's not going to work.
No, you have to go get it.
You've got to go do it yourself. And I don't give me the excuse about I got kids, I don't have time. I've got kids.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, like
let me tell you my story.
Time. You have time. You just have to manage it better. And I get it. Like we work in certainly mentally hard field, and at times you don't want to do it, and that's okay too. But you will exponentially grow when you invest a little bit, and sometimes that little bit means you need to outlay a little cash, and that's okay. Excuse me. So,
quite frankly, I was actually thinking about this the other week that, I think, I'm, having a harder time kind of keeping up and everything because I don't teach at the university and because I don't run my user group anymore. Well, we don't even have a user group anymore to go to, right? So I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the, not being it as, I shouldn't say this, trying to get a job or anything, but, I'm feeling that, I wish there was more community here. And there, of course, is the opportunity to start a community, but I've already told my friends that I'm not doing this alone again.
Right.
I'm going to be a minor part in this time. Right. Yep. And so we don't have a group, we still don't have anybody with that gusto or that kind of plan, like kind of like what you were talking about earlier. Right.
Yeah. And we struggle. I mean, thankfully we're still here at the moment, given the pandemic and all that, but it's still a struggle to try to get, or I should say the struggle seems to be getting harder and harder. And then you add inflation to things and all this other stuff that's going on. And people are like, oh, this is expensive. And it's like, yeah. I know.
Well, some people complain they, have to pay, $4.99 a month to read articles on my site. And I go, look, you know how much time I freaking spent to come up with this, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
a cup of coffee.
You're a software developer and you're complaining about $4.99.
Yep.
Really? Come on.
Yep.
It's I tell people, I even, it frustrates me. I'm sorry to say to my crowd, it frustrates me. I can't get enough people to like support, the causes like I try to support the, which I'll talk about at the end of the show. Right. I really wish, we have made some money here at CSharpCorner for the Voice of Slum, and I'm so proud of that.
Great.
And, when we visited the Voice of Slum in October, we brought them 5 computers and, but getting that little bit I've done is a lot harder than it should be. I guess is what I'm saying.
Yep. Yeah. And I don't want to turn all this into about money. I want people to reevaluate their relationship with money in this industry, because everything can't be free, right? People's time isn't free. We will only benefit by supporting the thriving ecosystem, right? And that's
I think a lot of people
such an important part.
I think a lot of people unfortunately don't understand that, when you don't pay for it, then you're the product. Right. And they don't understand that. And so they just want to be the product all the time, I guess. And, for those of us who don't have that kind of infrastructure, to make it that way, then, we're just kind of doing it, to help people, not necessarily, have.
We have a membership program at that conference, and it's $150 a year. And I make it real clear, like, you're not the product, I am. And this is a way to support us, so that we can try to achieve and pay our monthly bills and and all that, but I don't want to spend money like selling data and all. Like, I don't want to do any of that stuff. But you're right. So many people are all right with just giving
Being
it
the
to
product.
the Twitters and whatever else. But then it comes down to $4.99. You're like, okay, I don't get it. Literally
More for that than coffee these days. Jesus.
Right.
Anyway, I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube. So let's talk about that conference. So why did you start that conference? You know, you got started right when you in community, when you first started, you know, being a developer, just like me. But what made you decide? Because, you know, I know I might complain sometimes about running the user group, but it was one of the best things I ever did. Don't get me wrong. So you know, so what made you kind of jump from that the community world to really making an official, real conference? And multiple cities now, right?
Yeah,
what other cities?
Yeah, outside of Austin, and then in the Wisconsin Dells.
Yeah,
so Wisconsin and Texas.
Yeah.
You know, so the year's 2010, to age myself, and I was speaking all over the country. And there were a lot of cities that had a much stronger kind of developer culture than what I thought we had in the Midwest. What I saw was a lot of very segmented groups. You'd have a Ruby group and a .NET group and a this and a this and a whatever. And people weren't really kind of sharing across. And then you have like in the city and out of the city. And then we've got major metros around here. So Milwaukee, Madison, Chicago, like all these big cities. And it was just like, you know, fragmented all over the place. And I wanted to fix that. I worked in, you know, .NET and Ruby and other things. And I was like, why can't all this shit just be kind of in one place? And why can't we have a more vibrant ecosystem? But also at the same time, and, you know, still an issue today, but, you know, getting women in tech or Black people or whatever, right? Name non-white dude in tech was difficult, right? And the strategies back then were like convince the nurse to hop the fence, and that doesn't really work. Now I grew up, you know, as a mechanic, and you know, grandfathers into trades and all that kind of stuff, and they always had something physical to touch, right? It was a building, it was a farm, it was a car or whatever. But we work on ones and zeros. So it's kind of like we're magicians. Like we type on a keyboard and people are like, oh, great. I don't understand why it took so long.
Exactly. So exactly the way I feel. Most people think about us.
Yeah. And so I wanted to give kids a place where they could see their parents as heroes and get exposure to things that they may not get in school. So the idea was, let's have a family-friendly tech conference that's at a water park. And we live next to, or sort of live next to, a town that's just this nothing but water parks, and it's in the middle of a cornfield, and it works out well because it's in the middle of everything, right? It's in the middle of the Twin Cities to Chicago, Madison to Milwaukee. Like, it's just in the middle. And so the point was, let's just get everybody together, have fun, and learn, right? Create exposure for kids and spouses, get to meet somebody's wife or husband because you hear about them at work, but you don't always get to see them. You never met them before. So how can we just kind of bring it all together? And so in 2012 or in 2010, we made the announcement. In 2012, we had our first event. There was probably about 400 people. In 2019, in Wisconsin, we had 1,800 folks, 350 kids, 300 spouses, you know, 35 kids spoke.
Dang.
It was, you know, we got to a place where we were watching adults go to sessions of teenagers to learn from them, right? And that's exactly the kind of thing that should be happening when you have an ecosystem that is of full respect and vulnerability and support and all that. And then of course the pandemic came, and we decided we really kind of expanded since then for a variety of reasons. But the impetus was, let's get people together. Let's be a place where kids can meet other kids who are interested in the same things. Let's, meet the spouses. Let's have a good time. Let's recenter, learn some new stuff, and have some fun. And I guess it worked.
Can single guys come?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean,
I'm signing up. I'm going to be a camp counselor.
I said family friendly. How about that? Yeah, it's we've got people of all ages, 2 to.
When is the next one? May?
July.
Yeah.
January and July. July in Wisconsin, January in Texas. And so it's that in-person experience where it's not just about sessions, it's about people, it's about you, it's about your whole self. When there's 150 sessions, they kind of span, self-help to, totally geeky stuff. So it's cool. It's we just finished the Texas one, and that was our second time, and it was proof to me that, especially right now, people need people, and we're
how many did you have in Texas?
Like 250.
Yeah, everything's trying to get back to normal, right? It's going to be tough in the beginning.
Yep. Yeah, that's. I think for Wisconsin, we'll be back to. Let's see, 2021 we had 425. Last year we had like 9.25. I think we'll get pretty close to 1,300 in Wisconsin this time, but it depends. It's such a different world with companies cutting their training budgets and I
don't get that.
It's a little bit all over the place. I'm seeing companies now saying that their people can't leave because of product deadlines, and we see like all spectrums, right? We have, I can't hire anybody, to either I'm going to fire or I'm not going to let you go do anything. And it's like, holy cow, let's just get in the middle, retain your people, train them, have a good time.
Yeah.
And you might actually grow. Like there's a concept.
Yeah. I talk to developers about, does your company provide, any kind of training, support you either, by paying for it or sending you to conferences, and hardly anybody does anymore. And, I remember back in the day, that, whenever I would sign up with a company, I would have written in the employment contract that they had to send me to 2 conferences a year. They had to. And one time here when I was working, I was the original official development department of proflowers.com. And I remember it's always crunch time, right? It's pretty much always time. Especially nowadays. It's always crunch time.
It's always late. Needed to be yesterday.
Right. And so it was, I don't remember what was going on. It was so long ago. And she goes, well, and I told her, remember, I'm going to the, blah, blah, blah conference. I already signed up and paid and blah, blah, blah. And she goes, well, you can't go. Blah, blah, blah. And I walked back to my desk. I printed my that page of the employment contract. I went back to her desk, showed it to her. She goes, oh, okay. I guess you got to go.
And it was fine. Like it still got done.
But at least got done. Now you don't even get the money. Now they won't even approve you to do things like that, right?
Yeah.
The only reason, if we held code camps, during the weekday, we'd get nobody. And that's why we usually held them in the weekend, because that's when people had free time, they could come, because companies just don't let you go anywhere anymore.
Yeah, it's really difficult. And it's disappointing because like I said, I see all spectrums of things, and I don't know, companies need to kind of step back and ask the hell they're doing. I know that the proliferation of things like Udemy and Pluralsight and all that, they're good, right? Don't get me wrong, but they're also not a replacement, right?
Right.
And just because it's your training budget, you save some dollars because you gave them a Pluralsight course.
That's not the same.
It's not the same.
No,
Not the same at all.
definitely not the same. So, one thing I was thinking about when you were talking was, I don't know about you, but, after COVID hit, I didn't realize this until COVID hit. About 6 months after COVID hit, I really started feeling this, because I'm not going anywhere. I'm not talking about concerts and stuff. I go, speaking. I'm not going to India. I'm not going to wherever, to speak at conferences anymore. And I was starting to feel, it started bothering me, like I'm going through some kind of withdrawal. And unfortunately now I'm used to it, and I don't like that either.
Yep. Yep. No, that's very much a thing, and you're not alone in that. I talk to a lot of folks who have, what's a good way to put it? Exactly the same situation as you. I did a thing. I felt uncomfortable. Now the uncomfortable is fine, right? They don't know it. But then I'm seeing folks show up at our conference, and then it's like the letdown happens, and all of the weight of the past few years starts to come out, and I just feel bad. I genuinely think it's probably, I can probably relate to men in this case a little bit more, who have been trying to provide and have families and kids, and they're just trying to keep their shit together. And, you see them for the first time when you haven't seen them in a few years, and they're kind of kicking back, and they're realizing, shit, I really missed all this. I really missed the intimate connections that I'm making and meeting new people. And you just see like this world of pain kind of get released. And it's a real problem.
I kind of had to start getting used to people. I remember, I have it written down in my journal that, when I first started, seeing my friends, in the real world for the first time since COVID hit, I remember feeling uncomfortable and not wanting to be there. And I'm sorry if you're watching, but, it was a weird feeling, because I spent so many, because I unfortunately I live alone. And so, it was
the
really
pressures are mount.
It was really difficult for me to do that. The first, like I would say handful of times, I remember having issues with that. Yeah.
And across the US, everybody's dealing with it a little bit differently. You all out on the West have a different opinion of COVID and whatnot than the central region, than the East Coast, than somebody who's had kids versus somebody who's in the trades. Right. We've had to, I have 2 kids who are in club sports, and, they're active teenagers. So, we've been,
I was going to ask you if you have kids, how old
and,
they are.
Yeah, it's soon to be 17 and 15. So we've been at games, and we've had to be out, right? It's this life. And so it's, I don't want to get into politics, but there's these narratives that get created, and you see, and depending upon, what you choose to take in versus you being around and acting with other folks, like this is where the disconnect comes in. It's like, oh, I saw this shit online, but then it's like, oh, but over here people are like actually doing stuff, right? And so, things will get, hopefully get normalized over the years to come. But
it will. I think it will. And even, I wrote a series of articles about what I hope COVID shows, everybody, and some of it's come true, but one of the things I don't know if I wrote in the article, but I definitely thought about it, is that I think it is valuable to have an online presence at a conference.
Oh yeah.
Definitely for those of people around the world that don't have access to come to Chicago or Austin, Texas, right? And so I think it's valuable for that, because not many conferences did that at all before, right?
No.
And so one of the things I hoped, and I've even talked to Mahesh about starting a conference here, Mahesh is, who runs CSharpCorner, and we're kind of thinking that too. It's got to be some kind of hybrid thing, especially because nobody from India can come, right? So, it's definitely, we want to, make sure those people get that value of the conference. Of course they won't get what we've been talking about the whole time,
No, but there
this
should be
hour,
stuff
but
there.
at least they can get the content and
Yep.
at least see the person, and it's a little better than just reading slides or something like that, right?
Yeah, one of the things that we, there's another part of my life, which is online communities. And one of the things that we were trying to sort out before the pandemic was, how do we connect people between the conference? Right? Conference is great, but it's super limiting, right? You have so many days, so many people, so many this, that, and the other that you can only physically do because you're in person, right? And that only works for those 4 days, right? But a community is 365 days out of the year. And so we do this thing at the conference called Open Spaces. It's essentially an unconference, but we have these huge boards, and there's one for every day, and they've got a grid on them, and it is the time, and it is circles, and they're just circles of chairs. So we got 15,000 square feet kind of set aside, and there's 16 circles of nothing but chairs. And you go up, and we have a kickoff for the open spaces, and you go up and you say, hey, I want to learn about, I'm new, I've been a JavaScript developer, I want to learn about C#. I'd like to have that conversation Monday at 2:00 in circle 15. And whoever shows up, they're the right people for as long as it takes. It's as long as it needed to take. And whatever was talked about was the things that were right. So you have this very unstructured conversation that is relevant to you in your life at that time, right? Context matters. It can go anywhere, the whole 9 yards. And so we took that spirit and brought it online and said, why can't we just do an unconference or an open space whenever? And so you can go to that.us and you can add a session. We call them activities, add an activity to the board and do exactly like what you and I are doing. We basically are facilitating virtual calls to where you can get in and talk and share your screen and breakout rooms, whatever. But rather than slinging slides and shit like that, you can have a conversation, right? We can, the next best thing to being in person is seeing one another and saying, how do we scale this conversation online? Because let's just pretend that I like Svelte. Well, there's a lot of people in like the Nordic countries that love Svelte too. Well, I would really like to interface with them, but I sure as hell can't afford to fly over there. But there's this thing called the internet and a web browser where we can do that. And so we now have, these two milestone events, if you will, and then this online thing where you can interact any day of the year from anywhere on any topic, and continue the conversation when it's relevant to you. And you're right. I mean, online is important. I think you have to, or I would encourage people to not try to replicate what you're doing in person, because it's not the same, right? When you're in person, you can do something that's different. When you're online, you can do something that's online, and treating those mediums as they were intended to be used is important. And lean into what you can do, right? The internet gives us this infinite scale, and streaming's got so much better, and all that we can do, right? The asynchronous nature of the internet is amazing. Use it, right? Like, you don't use a hammer to put in a screw, so don't use the internet to just sling slides. Like, YouTube makes video distribution easy. Don't make YouTube. Like, don't do that. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I gotta let you go so Simon can go to bed or whatever he's going to do next. We didn't get any questions, but that's okay. I think I don't know. I really like this conversation about, around community and getting out there, and just, I just like you, I talked blue in my face about how important that is
Yep.
to do that, and I need to be better at it. And I'm definitely now going, dang it, I'm going to sign up to be a counselor and at the next one, and hopefully I can come and visit you live and in person.
In
because
person.
you're right, you're totally right, and it sounds to me, and I didn't know this by looking at your website, but it sounds to me like you've really kind of tried to create something that you have to pay to go to, but it's more like a community,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's not a business, right?
My new thing is it's the only conference that's a community.
Right. Yeah.
And we are very much community first. Like the conference is a facility of which we can get together and learn from one another, right?
Mhm.
We have them. The reason we're in Texas is it's easy to travel to. The reason I'm in Wisconsin is because it's where my roots
That's where
are.
you live.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
That's why the user group meeting is 2 blocks from my house.
right. Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's been great chatting with you. And I know we talked, you're going to go skiing, but what else do you do for fun besides running
Work.
that conference?
Yeah. Well, I used to, I've got a couple classic cars that I love working on when I have an opportunity. My kids are at a certain age to where, just spending time with them and having fun and, watching soccer at their,
You're going
they
to do
both
adult
play.
stuff now. You can go
Yeah.
snowboarding with your
Yeah.
kids. Man,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah.
It is a different, I've only got a few years left before they're kind of off on their own. So I'm trying
They'll
to
never talk to you
maximize that
again,
time with them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fun time, and you're right. You got to spend the time when you can, and I'm not trying to leave this on the sad note, but especially what happened in Turkey this week is that any time you can spend with somebody is precious, and make sure you value
Be
that
present.
and be present when you can, because you never know what's going to happen the next day, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're due for a big one here. Yeah.
As developers, right? We often marginalize our time. So be present, put the phone down. It's okay, right?
Yeah.
Just take a break. You'll probably solve it faster in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been awesome talking to you, and it's been awesome getting to know what that conference really is all about. And I'm really glad that you came on and got to talk to me today. And I liked it just for that. So I hope everybody else got something out of it, and I hope everybody else goes out and starts working in the community, because as we've been talking about, this will dramatically improve your career and your personal life. Right?
Yep, I agree.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll see you next time, and I hope I see you at the next that conference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Wow. Just like I said, that was, I don't know, I really enjoyed that conversation. I know we were kind of complaining a bit, but I really enjoyed that. Sorry, I was looking at myself. I don't know why. I really enjoyed that, because anybody who really knows me knows how important community is to me, and it's great to not only find someone else who feels that same way as I do, but is able to help others in that same way in a good manner, from what I hear. And so I'll get to know in person, hopefully, if I get to go at the next DAC conference. And so if you live in America, if you want to go to the next one, go check it out. I'm sorry, this was not meant to be an advertisement by any stretch, but I'm excited to go to that conference. Oh, that conference. Oh, okay. And speaking of you laughing, technical debt. Oh my gosh. You all know I'm a contractor, and unfortunately I have to deal with this all the time. And it just, so I found this week. Somebody tweeted, and I liked it. I understand why it takes so long to add a new window. Exactly what happens when you don't architect your applications correctly. Oh, I see this over and over. All right. Oh, and I just talked about Turkey. Unfortunately, that happened this week. But also, unfortunately, we're running up against the first year of the Ukrainian conflict, and I don't know. It's making me more and more sad. But not only because I have friends there and I've been there, but just see a country completely destroyed for no reason is just in 2023. I don't know. But if you can help out, if you can support, even with prayers, I hope you can do that, because everybody in Ukraine and Turkey need our support right now. So I hope you go help out others. We have the ability to help everybody. We have the ability to help people, as we were talking about today. And so I hope you will go do that. Okay. And speaking of help, I hope you will help me help the kids in India. The Voice of Slum is very, very important to me. Actually, because of you, I'm going to be sending them some money. Some of you have been buying my ebook on code performance, and so thank you so much. As soon as I get that payment from Amazon, I'm going to be sending it directly to the Voice of Slum. So thank you very much. But if you can go to thevoiceofslum.org, or you can go scan that, or go to that GoFundMe I've set up, which no one's donated in a while. But you can do those things to help me help the kids in India. Like I talked about earlier, I was able to visit them last October, which was very special to me. And I really, really liked it. And I was really happy to see Chandy and Dave, the founders, and also bring them 5 computers that they needed to help teach the kids. And we need to help people, and so that's my way of helping. So, all right, thanks for watching. Khalid is next week, so I'm really looking forward to that, because since he doesn't tweet anymore, I miss him. So I can't wait to catch up and talk about what we're going to be talking about next week. So don't forget to be back here same time, same channel next week. Please be careful with COVID. It's not over, unfortunately, but it's getting better. So, but still be careful. And also, please donate blood at your local blood bank. I did a couple of weeks ago. Finally, here in San Diego, when I go to India, I can't donate for 3 months. So 2 weeks ago, I was able to donate, and that really made my day. And because you all know how important this is to me, and you can do it too, because it's free and easy. It only takes like half hour for you. It takes 2 hours for me, but if you half hour. All right. And please email suggestions, who you want me to invite on the show, what subjects you want on the show. Like I say a lot, this is your show. So any feedback I will take and incorporate into the show. And with that, I'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.